Oh, hello, and we're back in Ecclesiastes now, and gave a brief introduction in the previous video. This time we're going to look at chapter 1. So let's read it from the NIV. Chapter 1 of Ecclesiastes. The words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labours at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets. Hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north, and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear has its fill of hearing. What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations. Even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I apply my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of madness and folly. But I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and the more knowledge, the more grief. So we see a number of key characteristics of this book there. One, it can seem to be, in some ways, it's very pessimistic. Meaningless, meaningless. This too is a chasing after the wind. With much knowledge comes much grief. We also see in the first verse the sort of the internal evidence that Solomon is the guy who wrote this book. It says, the words of the teacher, the son of David. Solomon was the son of David, the king of Jerusalem. He was the king of Jerusalem. He was a successor to David as king. And in verse 12, I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. So I said in the introduction, Ortland commentary I've used in working through this book doesn't reckon it is Solomon. There are two key arguments he seems to give. One is the style of Hebrew. I'm not qualified to make any comment on that. He says that the style of Hebrew is more consistent with a later date than it would be if Solomon was the guy who wrote this stuff. The other argument is that Solomon is not mentioned by name, which he would have expected him to have been if Solomon was actually the author of this book. Anyways, it's not absolutely crucial. The key thing is that the teacher, the guy who's kind of saying all this stuff, is a clever guy. He knows what he's doing. He is, in Rhodes terms at least, a wise man. Then we get this term, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Or vanity of vanities, as I think the King James says. And he goes on, and what he's really doing is, I think he's showing or proving or demonstrating that life without God we cannot understand life properly. Life makes no sense without God. And we don't know how to live life properly without God. And he says, look, it doesn't matter what you do, the sun's going to rise and it's going to set. You'll die one day, and after you die, it'll still continue rising and setting, as it always has done, as it has done for thousands or millions of years or billions of years, depending on your view and the age of the universe. Whether you're a six-day creation merchant or whether you're going for think it's 13.5 billion years or something like that. That's the current estimate by scientists. Anyway, whatever. Things just carry on. Water flows into the sea never fills up. That's all to do with the hydrological cycle, if anyone's interested. And the eyes never has enough. You see things that you see things right now. You see them again tomorrow. You just don't want to see more. You'll hear things, just don't want to hear more. You never have a fill of hearing. And then we get in 12:18 says, I, the teacher, as king over Israel, I apply my mind to study and to explore. So he said back, can wisdom give us the answer? And this is very human. In fact, it's a God-given desire. We want to understand, we want to be able to explain how and why things work in the way they do. And that's God-given. God, in the beginning of Genesis, says, fill and subdue the earth. And it says to Adam, name the animals. The desire to carry out this sort of scientific enterprise is a God-given desire. Doesn't mean atheists can't do good science, they can. But it's a God. But people say that science and theism, or science and belief in God, are contrary to each other. They're talking nonsense. John Lennox wrote an excellent book, I think it's called The Science God's Undertaker, or it might just be God's Undertaker. It's by John Lennox. It's an excellent book on how science and Christianity are entirely compatible. In fact, the desire to do science, to seek to understand, whether it's through science or through philosophy, is God-given. We're meant to want to do that. And the teacher says, I've applied myself to all this. It's all meaningless, doesn't get us anywhere, and it's hard work. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and more knowledge, the more grief. Just seems to get us into a bigger mess than we were in before. Gives a headache. I'm thinking a number of philosophers have gone mad. I think I read that somewhere, I can't remember where now. It says, look, I've increased with wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem, but it's got me nowhere. So it's just to say that the whole purpose of the book is just saying, look, without God we cannot make sense of life. You cannot live life without God, or live it properly. You cannot make sense of life without God. So on that note, we'll stop there. Next time it will be chapter 2 with more delights in it.